The Honourable Member for Durack.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and it's good to see that I finally agree with something the member for Moreton has said. He's a lover of Paul Kelly, as am I, so isn't that nice to find something we both agree on? Today, Deputy Speaker, I'm pleased to rise to speak to the House on the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Amendment Bill 2015. The Abbott government is building a strong, prosperous and sustainable economy for a safe and secure Australia. Since coming to office, there have been 12,500 new jobs created in my electorate of Durack alone, which is about a quarter of the new jobs in WA since the government came to office, and there have been more than 335 new jobs created in Australia since the government was elected. Now, Deputy Speaker, you know and I know that projects create jobs, and the government and I want the highest environmental standards to apply to these new projects. That's why I will not sit idly by and watch jobs, investment and our economy be threatened by activist litigation. This bill will protect Australian jobs by removing the provision which allows green activists to get involved in litigation to merely frustrate, in many cases, the development of important economic projects in the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. Mr Deputy Speaker, I repeat, the government does want the highest environmental standards, and I personally want the environment to be in a better condition tomorrow than it is today. We respect the right for people to take matters to court. However, I do not agree with people using the courts to frustrate a process in pursuit of a political agenda. Deputy Speaker, the era of vocal minorities must end, and so must the taxpayers' precious money that gets wasted on policing these often neurotic protests, which are unproductive and are choking the Australian economy. Deputy Speaker, it is worth repeating that this bill will protect Australian jobs, something which is in this government's DNA. This bill should make a substantial saving in reduced litigation and increased investment security for business, something which those opposite will never understand and is more the pity. Deputy Speaker, the previous Labor government, as we all know, has left us a legacy of gross debt projected to rise to $660 billion. Suffice to say, those opposite have been financially reckless and have no idea when it comes to managing the country's finances. Debt and poor financial management is in Labor's DNA. Section 487 of the EPC Act is currently a welcome mat for radical activists who have a political, not a legal, interest in development to use aggressive litigation tactics to interrupt vital job-creating projects. These radicals are impacting on the country's economic growth and thus our jobs. Jobs for young Australians, jobs for older Australians. Mr Deputy Speaker, I call on the Labor Party to leave the politics at the door and join the government in protecting Australian jobs. Let's see whether Labor is committed to Australian jobs, as they say, whether they will just buddy up once again with the Greens. Importantly, the proposed amendment will not affect local agricultural producers and others with a legitimate proprietary, economic, financial or other direct interests. They can rest assured that their voices will be heard and the courts will be available to assist with the protection of their rights. And of course, Mr Deputy Speaker, that is the way it ought to be. The government will repeal this provision to return the law to the usual position where only someone with a legitimate interest in commencing legal action has standing to do so, but someone who merely wants to prosecute a political cause does not. Mr Deputy Speaker, as I said earlier, this bill is part of the federal government's long-term economic plan. Earlier this week on Monday marked the second year since our government was elected to office. The people of Durack regularly tell me that they are pleased that this government now is a breath of fresh air after 6 years of some of the most dysfunctional government in the Western world. Female workforce participation is at record levels, with over 171,000 more women in jobs at the time of the election. This is filtered through to Durack, which of course I'm very pleased to say, where women from around the electorate often tell me about a new job they've secured since our government was formed. The confidence which has been instilled in the business community has been sound, with a record 223,013 new companies registered last year alone. We've delivered tax cuts for small business, reducing the rate to the lowest it's been since 1967. Deputy Speaker, we're backing hard-working families through lower electricity prices by abolishing the carbon tax. We're backing seniors by providing certainty on superannuation. We're backing farmers with new tax write-offs for fencing, water infrastructure and fodder storage. And we're backing home buyers with interest rates at a 4-decade low. And we're also backing job seekers with Job Active, which will assist job seekers find not just a new job, but a career. And Deputy Speaker, we're backing Northern Australia through the Northern Australia White Paper with a plan for a sustainable development through better roads and other infrastructure. Deputy Speaker, this government has a record which the opposition could only dream of, and that's why I call on the Labor Party to join the government in protecting Australian jobs and support this bill. The Abbott Coalition government wants the highest environmental standards to apply, but we will not allow jobs, investment and our economy to be threatened by activist litigation, I should say. Business confidence and conditions are in positive territory. As Dun & Bradstreet said on the 1st of September, we're seeing robust levels of optimism across all sectors in the business community. Retail trade is 4.2% higher than it was 12 months ago. The proof is in the pudding. And Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm pleased to say that unemployment has dropped to 6.2%, down 1% compared to this time last year. According to the Australian Financial Security Authority, bankruptcies are at a 20-year low, which is more good news. There is an increasing trend by green groups and other organisations using the court system to sabotage important economic projects. Their obstructionist behaviour is sacrificing tens of thousands of Australian jobs. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Abbott government wants to build on this strong economic footprint and build more regional jobs, especially in Durack, and that's why this bill is essential. Deputy Speaker, the federal government has applied the highest environmental standards since coming to office. But by doing that, we have still managed to halve the time for environmental approvals and cleared the backlog of projects which have left languishing by those sitting opposite. This government's pragmatic approach to the environment since being elected has created 3,000 new jobs for young Australians aged between 17 and 24 across over 350 projects throughout Australia. Deputy Speaker, last week I was very happy to be able to meet with the vibrant dedicated group of the Green Army who are currently working in my electorate on the Chapman and Greenock estuaries in the Mid-West. This team is responsible for protecting, restoring and celebrating the significant national environmental and heritage values of the regionally significant waterways. The project employs 9 people and goes to the heart of one of my key priorities, which is to give young people in my electorate a job. The Green Army is just one element of the government's environmental platform, which has approved 176 projects around Australia valued at more than $1 trillion. Deputy Speaker, the people of Durack, which you know because I've told you this before, are a resilient, hard-working community, and they are particularly frustrated by vocal minorities. And it's not news, but there have been some job losses in WA's north, and this government wants to ensure the right legislative environment, as do I, to encourage other resources projects to be able to get out of the ground and create more jobs for the people of Durack. While I welcome people to exercise their democratic right to protest, I do not support the obstructionist behaviour which unjustifiably wastes time and taxpayers' money and, more importantly, developers' money and ultimately Australian jobs. Vocal minorities have been ruling the airways for far too long, sometimes for no other reason but just to be adversarial, and regrettably the media gets sucked in every single time. Currently under Section 487 of the EPBC Act, radical activists who have a political interest can and do disrupt important projects, and this disruption is increasing. Activists themselves have declared that their objective is to use the courts for the political purpose of stopping developments. Deputy Speaker, alarmingly, we've learned that one Green group in their document called Stopping the Australian Coal Export Boom declared litigation as a strategy to delay and disrupt and to reduce the financial viability of key infrastructure projects, including ports, rail and mines, and no doubt many of those potential projects would be in my electorate of Durack. This bill will repeal this provision to return to the acceptable position where somebody with a legitimate interest in commencing a legal action has standing to do so. But somebody who merely wants to prosecute a political cause does not. Mr Deputy Speaker, I stand here commending this bill not just as a Liberal but also as a lawyer and also someone who has worked in business development in the resources sector. I get jobs, you get jobs, and of course the Abbott government gets jobs as well. This bill is an element of the Abbott government's long-term economic plan which supports jobs. The bill will disallow vocal minorities from engaging in vigilante time wasting. Here is an opportunity, Deputy Speaker, for the opposition to join the government in protecting Australian jobs, existing jobs, but also the jobs of the future. And I commend this bill to the House.
Thank the member for Durack.